Okay, it looks like we have the top of the hour, so I'll welcome everyone. Again, Amy McCoy, and I have Jan McCoy with me, except he's
Good morning.
remote. Where are you, Jan?
I'm at the Valley River Inn in lovely Eugene, Oregon.
Okay, and I will just say, I'll ask, why are you in Eugene again?
Well, I didn't particularly want to be in Eugene, but this is where our daughter is. And by the way, the lovely young woman behind you on the photo,
Oh,
and she's moving to Plovdiv on Wednesday. And I'm here to carry one of her two cats because you can only travel with one cat in the cabin at a time as an individual traveler. So it's very exciting times for us.
so he's joining remotely. So hopefully we run this technically very smoothly. We've done some practice and it should be pretty straightforward. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay, here we go. We're today are here to in our third of three. So this is the last session together. Today will be all about Plovdiv, the city that I'm currently in, the city that we live in. I will turn it over to Jan to talk a little bit about where we are, just to give some
Yeah,
perspective.
actually, I want to answer the question that came through in the chat. Um, Sandra asks why you chose to go to Bulgaria and does your daughter retain her Bulgarian language skills? We're in Bulgaria because of our daughter. We adopted her, as we've mentioned, from Bulgaria. And that led to several visits, about a dozen over the course of the 20 years or so. And we just decided it was an interesting place and we were looking for a big adventure toward the end of our experience in life. So this is the big adventure for us. She is a Bulgarian citizen as well as an American citizen. So she has dual citizenship for now. And the question is, does she retain her language skills? She actually did retain some of it. It's interesting because she doesn't know the words very well, although she attended the American University in Blagoevgrad here in, well, there in in Bulgaria.
Down here.
I'm I'm
Yeah.
I'm in Oregon, so
Mhm.
but anyway, she attended there and studied Bulgarian, but she was 2 when she moved to to the US from Bulgaria. So she's just a native English speaker, from, well, an American speaker. But we understand that she actually has the phonemes that she needs that we don't have because of her experience as a very early language learner in Bulgaria. So that helped. So wait, somebody asked about the cats.
Yeah.
They're going under the seat in front of us, and we aren't going to medicate them. Although there's some kind of feline calm stuff that they suggest spraying in the crate. We'll be looking into that because I need a calm cat when I get off the plane in Amsterdam. Anyway, so we wanted to give you a little bit to orient for where Amy is today and where I usually am. By the way, this is my first time on American soil in 14 months. We were in Bulgaria exclusively, except for a couple of trips to nearby countries for the last 14 months. So, as you can see, if we start at the bottom, Greece and Turkey, which most people are familiar with, are on the south side of Bulgaria, and they kind of split the border about in half. On the east is the Black Sea, which is a beautiful sea. It's very large. You can't see across it. If you were to stand beside it, it looks like the ocean. And unlike the coast in Oregon, it gets to about 85 degrees for the water temperature and 90 or so, 90 plus for summer days. So it's a beautiful place to go to spend a little time by the ocean. To the north, the entire northern border is Romania, and most of that is the Danube, which just to the right of where it says Romania, right where Amy's pointing, takes off up into Romania. So part of the south side of the Danube is Romania as well. And then to the west, we have Serbia and North Macedonia. Serbia and North Macedonia are both, God bless you, dear, both Balkan countries in the way that they have the same language base as Bulgarian. In fact, North Macedonians and Bulgarians can talk to each other pretty easily without much translation. Similar to the way Americans and Brits talk to each other, and they say some different words, but everybody gets the point. Romania has a Romance language. So it sounds to us somewhat like Spanish when somebody's speaking Romanian. I first noticed that with the Olympics when I was a child, but it's pretty obvious now. We can't tell Romanians from Spaniards based on what they're saying. Greek, of course, and Turkish are both radically different languages. They have completely different sources. So there's no direct conversation between Greeks and Bulgarians or Turks and Bulgarians unless somebody speaks a second language. They're just not at all related languages, which is kind of odd. Greek is kind of a unique thing. So
I thought we talked about where are we?
Yeah.
Right?
So this is a map showing the majorist cities in Bulgaria, although there are a few pretty minor ones. Asenovrad, just south of Plovdiv, is not a very large city, but you can see where Plovdiv is. We're very central, east and west, and just a little south of the central point for Bulgaria. We're there because there's a mountain range just to the north, and there's another one just to the south. And this is the midst of a very large plain, an agricultural plain that is a very productive space. So that's why people have lived in Plovdiv as long as they have.
Jan, would you like to give a bit of background about this place?
Surely. Yeah. I'm sorry, I have to switch screens here, and that'll take there we go. So Plovdiv has been in place for a very long time, although it hasn't been Plovdiv all that long. It was initially built on a small collection of 7 large hills, which were useful as a means of defense. So the bases of the hills, down below the hills, was used for agriculture, and then above the tops of the hills, they built fortresses and communities. It is clear that people have been living in the area continuously since the 6th millennium BC. So 8,000 years people have lived on top of what is referred to as Nebet Tepe now, and on the other hills as well. So Neolithic era, this is when they were just moving from the Stone Age and into an agricultural-based economy. People have been there continuously. Now, people have been in a lot of places all over Europe, of course, but they haven't lived and stayed and been there continuously the whole time. Initially, it was just a collection of people. It eventually developed into a city, Thracian settlement, which has been recorded as Populveda. No, not quite. Populdiva, that's it. And then not long after, Alexander the Great, just before the era of Christ, so 350, he lived 359 to 336 BC, built a city here and called it Philippopolis because he, of course, had a bit of an ego. He transferred that to his son. That's why there are Alexandrias everywhere in the Middle East and in the area. So Philip was the king of Macedonia, father of Alexander the Great, and there were Thracians, which is a group that I honestly wasn't familiar with, living in the area. And the Macedonians, also referred to as Greeks, moved into the area and kind of melded together. Philippopolis itself became the capital of the Roman province of Thracia. So Thrace was well known to the Romans. So
anything more there, Jan, before I move on?
Oh, well, just it was a very important spot in Roman times. There were roads through Plovdiv Philippopolis at the time, that went in all directions. And if you were traveling in the area, it was almost certain you were going through Plovdiv. So it's been a very important trading spot, that sort of thing.
And we will see evidence of that very, very soon. Just to give you a perspective, we want to show you the map so that you can understand this is a crossroads, right? You go from the Middle East, from the east through Turkey, you're going through Greece or Bulgaria to move into Eastern and Western Europe. Plovdiv, as we know it today, has been conquered by and ruled by the following groups. You may know many of them: the Persians, the ancient Macedonians, the Celts, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Goths, the Huns, early Bulgarians, Thraco-Romans, the Bulgars, different Slavic tribes, Crusaders. We had the Crusades coming through here. And last, and hopefully for Bulgarians, the Ottoman Turks. So a little bit about the impact of the Ottomans on Bulgaria. They were here about 500 years. In January of 1878, the Russians helped defeat the Ottomans in the Russo-Turkish War, and that became, Plovdiv was liberated. But Plovdiv was liberated into its own province called East Rumelia. And if you read about history, I did for a long time, and heard about East Rumelia and never really put the dots together of where it was. It was this part of Bulgaria. In 1885, Plovdiv and East Rumelia officially joined back into the entire federation, the country of Bulgaria. So Bulgaria, as you see here, has been in place since 1885. So just some perspective as we move forward on our tour. Okay, so we've got a number of things to show you today. First off, I'll start with this. Jan, you can take the next one. Here is the name Plovdiv, written in Cyrillic, written in Bulgarian, in flowers, and this is visible when you drive through town. I think it's a pretty cool photo. And I know you're answering, Jan.
Yeah.
Here is a wall near the ancient theater. They really promote the love part of Plovdiv. There is no E when we spell Plovdiv, but they really do promote that aspect of Plovdiv. Okay, into some real content here. Food and shopping. I think we've always focused on food and shopping first, and there's a reason. Here we are at an outdoor festival, and I think we've seen some photos of this maybe in Bulgaria, but in the Balkans, I cannot emphasize strongly enough, how much meat is available here. And it is barbecued, and you name the kind of meat and you're going to get it here. Actually, this event is coming up again here in a few weeks, and I'm going to drag Jan and Emily to it again. So it's a beautiful outdoor folk festival with folk dancing. Jan, you want to describe where you are here?
Sure, that's me. Seated in front of Central Perk. We actually included this particular photo because it's modeled after what you saw in the television show Friends. So, I mean, even the logo on the window is pretty much a rip-off, pardon me, and a tribute to Friends. Inside, it's all couches and that sort of thing. So it's very much trying to copy the American cultural icon of Friends. The couch I'm sitting on, by the way, is outside. There's lots of outside seating at these coffee shops. This
happens to be a little market directly in front of our daughter's new apartment building. And I love that this is here. First of all, it's got everything imaginable. You can go in the store, very small, but amazingly packed, which means you kind of have to scoot around someone. It is a one aisle. You walk in and everything is around you in a U. But what I really appreciated here were the strawberries, which were amazing. They tasted so good. This is about probably 3 weeks ago, Jan, I think.
Yeah.
Really amazing, really good, and just a lovely example of some of the fresh fruit and produce we have available for us here in Bulgaria.
We kind of have made the point that produce is great.
It is.
We did get a question, and I'll address it. One of the things that you will hear about all the time, if you see anything about different things that happen in Bulgaria, lots of videos. Anybody who visits mentions this in their videos. They mention it because they've heard it, not because they've experienced it. And that's that Bulgarians nod their head for no and shake their head for yes. And that is true among older people in the villages.
And even in
We
town,
understand.
and
Yeah,
some
well,
folks in town,
yeah, but it
but
is
not,
not common anymore.
and not
So
young. Yeah.
yeah, it's not at all confusing for us. We've not had that as an experience where we got confused, but it has been attributed to Bulgarians under the Ottomans deciding they could answer in the negative questions about their Christianity as opposed to Muslim backgrounds, and they would say no when
No.
in fact they meant
Yes.
yes. So they would shake their heads, or they would nod yes and shake their and say no. I'm sorry, this is a little confusing,
Yeah.
but it's backward to what you would expect. But it was just a deliberate effort to mislead, and that has died out in the last 140 or 50 years since the Ottoman Empire lost control.
So we've moved on to weather, and I wanted to put some landscapes up here. This is from a spot we're going to visit again a little later in the slideshow. This is on the top of Nebet Tepe, the place with the very old Neolithic settlements. You can see some of the hills here. There's 4 visible here. We're on the 5th. There's another one kind of behind us. Beautiful sky looking westward. Just a beautiful spring day, I believe this was.
You can also see how large the city is, which we don't experience. It just feels like a small town to us because we just don't get out into most of the city.
And here is a playground. On the left is the Doubletree Hotel, that big black glass building. They have a little park here. Actually, I go down to this park to take the dog down to relieve herself, but they have little children's playgrounds built throughout the town. You can see some forsythia here. I just took this a couple weeks ago when everything started blooming. So springtime in Bulgaria. This is a view also to the east with the sun setting. I happened to capture a few of the more traditional, I'll say communist block buildings, the apartments, the taller ones on the left. But you see kind of in the middle, some very new architecture, and the new buildings are, unfortunately, I'm going to say it this way, indistinguishable from Western Europe and America. I'll say it that way.
Yeah. Amy mentioned it's spring there, and it certainly is. I believe I said last week, but I'll mention again, they're on the same latitude as Ashland. If you go south by 4 miles from Ashland and turn to the left, you will end up in Plovdiv, but you better take a plane because it's hard to drive through the ocean. But it's that similar in its location, and also it's at about the same altitude. So we have within 5 degrees almost every day the same high as Ashland.
Yeah.
And we get exactly the same seasonal change that you see in Ashland.
We have a river that runs through the center of Plovdiv. It's the Maritsa River. And on both sides of the river, we have a walking and bike path, very accessible. It's pretty nice. This is a nice sunset recently from down there. And then there's yet another sunset. I need to note those kind of funny microwave looking towers are actually light platforms because there's a football stadium there. And not the football that I love and miss terribly from America, but football here. So just some perspective. This is another view north. That is the Central Balkan range, covered a little bit in some clouds, but pretty significant mountain range with, I just read 333 centimeters of snow. So what is that? Over 10 feet, almost 12 feet of snow up in this at the top of the Central Balkan range right now. Speaking of snow, this was in January or February, I believe. Do you remember when, Jan?
I think it was fairly early in February.
Yeah. And this happens to be, you see where the arrow pointer is, there's a door right there. That's the door into the courtyard, which I'm looking out at. So this is outside of our apartment, and these are cobblestones. Gotta really be careful walking on snow on these rocks. I'll just say it that way.
The snow didn't last. It happened to fall in the evening, so it lasted through to the next morning, but the sun came out and it disappeared. So it's very much like Ashland. You get a little snow now and then, but it doesn't tend to stay around very long.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And then this is again the park that I showed in the spring with the forsythia. The seasons happen.
We lost a lot of branches with that snow. It was very heavy.
Yeah, we did. Some events and activities. So some things that we've experienced here that we wanted to share with you. The first one is an interesting scene we came across. This was from November of last year, so just about 6 months ago. There were huge protests in Bulgaria about the government's budget. It was not a good budget. You may have heard the news. You may have seen protests in the capital city, Sofia. There were protests all over Bulgaria. And we happened to be walking toward a road. We did not know that they were going to be in this area. We knew that there might be some protests, but we're not reading Bulgarian news. We didn't know what to expect. Very strong nationalistic, I didn't feel scared. I don't know, Jan, did you feel scared in this environment?
No, it had very much a party atmosphere.
Yeah.
People were there for a good time, but they had strong opinions and were trying to make sure they were expressed.
Yeah.
And it was interesting.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The crowd was on the street. So the street was completely blocked. It was anticipated. It had been scheduled. But yeah, you can see there are police present. They're just hanging out with the crowd. They were very, very comfortable with what was going on.
There was no violence.
Yeah, one of the things we needed to get across the street, but as it turns out, one of the things that's fairly common in Bulgaria, throughout Plovdiv certainly, is that all the major streets, the pedestrian ways go under the street. So you walk down a few steps, typically 15, 20 steps. Very often you're on a Roman road at the bottom of that underpass, and then walk underneath the street and back up the other side. So we actually got to see this from both sides because we went under them. So it was a pretty easy thing to get past, which we were concerned about as we were approaching it. So
yeah.
Somebody asked about arts performances. The government really does. We're going to show you a couple of buildings later. We showed you last week the National Theater in Sofia. That's a government-owned building, and they have opera and other performances there. But there's a lot of money, and most of it, well, probably about a half match from the European Union rather than from Bulgaria itself. So there's lots of contribution toward culture in Europe generally, and certainly as well in Bulgaria.
This happens to be on Valentine's Day, which is known not highly strongly celebrated here in Bulgaria, but it's also known as Saint Trifon's Day. And it is a day of working in the vineyards. You go and trim the vines in the vineyards, and they wear traditional dress. And boy, those cowbells make a ton of noise. Quite a lot going on around. You could hear them coming, I would say. And a lot of groups around to celebrate together. Another event on March 1 every year is Baba Marta Day. It's the day Grandmother Spring. It's to represent the symbolic beginning of spring. Everything is red and white. You wear little bracelets called martinitsa. When you see your first flowering tree, or you see a stork, which are common here, you then take off your martinitsa and hang it on trees. And right now, there are bushes full of red and white little bracelets and things. So it's a pretty sweet custom. In fact, the city itself really decorates for Baba Marta Day. So here's a tree by the fountain in the center where they put up some red and white as well. This is our front door. This was our celebration. March 1, I had the centerpieces in. And then on March 5th, that represented the end of that represented the day that Bulgaria reunified with East Rumelia, Plovdiv, and it's a national celebration day. And everybody was out with their Bulgarian flags. So I got a couple of flags and put them on our door. So
the Unification Day is every bit as large as 4th of July. It's celebrated.
Yeah. Easter Easter is about Easter. It's about Jesus. It's about religion. There is no Easter bunny here. I know that there were chocolates. I think maybe children get some chocolates, but no baskets, nothing like that. They put up these lovely painted eggs in the center as well. I thought I'd share a few of those with you. They also have a spring/Easter market in the center of town. This is the festival, and they have it's kind of like Saturday market, either in Eugene or in Salem or in Ashland, where not fresh produce, but people with goods and services are there to promote things. This
Amy,
is yes.
I have to ask you to take the current question because I'm in the United States. They're asking, Benita is asking, have you heard anything about Hungary's election? I will tell you that in anticipation, I heard quite a bit. There was a lot of discussion of what might happen. But what about
it's been quiet, except I have heard two things. So first, I've heard the statements, okay, now we have to do something. Because Bulgaria has had a lot of snap elections, that huge protest nationwide created huge change in the government's budget. They were successful. But now that Hungary has done something, they feel like, okay, now we have to do something. So the election is Sunday, day after tomorrow. And I've seen an increased police presence. At first, I thought they were finally cracking down on people not driving well. And I was super excited, but it wasn't that. It is because the school next door to us is a voting place, and they're expecting, I think they may be expecting trouble. Don't know what the trouble would look like, but apparently before big elections, the police tend to come out, and it's almost as a sign of, hey, we're still doing our jobs here. And I have to tell you, if I were a citizen, I might think this is a little bit too late. They've been very absent in a lot of things, and then they show up kind of at the last minute in some situations. This is Easter last year at St. Petka Church nearby. Easter is celebrated at the stroke of midnight on Sunday. Remember, Orthodox Easter is usually a week after the Western celebration. We saw this last week, actually, when Easter happened. We saw fireworks going off at midnight. All of the bells on all of the towers were going, lots of bell ringing. The dog was medicated because that was the fireworks were kind of crazy. And people are walking around with their candles lit, and they go home and have the candles lit, and it's a sign of very good fortune if you can get all the way home with your candle remaining lit. I don't know what happens in wind.
I'll mention, Amy, you said that it's often a week later. I just looked it up for next year, and I thought this was true.
Yeah.
Western Easter will be celebrated on March 28th in 2027. The Orthodox Easter in Bulgaria will be May 2nd.
Oh,
so
wow.
There's a big separation.
Okay. The calendars.
Well, it's the calendar and an issue with when the moon happens.
Okay.
So it'll
be very different.
It's going to be quite different. Yeah.
We'll have two very different Easter. On to Thanksgiving, the American Thanksgiving. I wanted to include a photo. We decided to hold a Thanksgiving celebration. And so here's Jan. Here's the back of our friend Patrick. You can kind of see him. Our landlord and his wife. Apparently she was the only one paying attention to me. Here is besides Jan, here's the other American and our language instructor and her boyfriend, and just everyone else is Bulgarian. And we had such a lovely evening. It was American Thanksgiving as I know it. And from this event, that was about a 4-hour event total, we made closer friends with people at the end of the table who ended up renting and giving us Emily's apartment for a discount because, well, we know you. Okay, yeah, we'll take it. we have just developed relationships with so many people from this table. At the table, they were already asking if we were going to do it in 2027. So of course we are. This happens to be in the hotel, in the breakfast room of the hotel that we are attached to. And Mitko, our landlord, was very kind enough to let us borrow. So anyway.
I'll mention, not surprisingly, this was an entirely American menu with the exception of one dessert item. And it was an interesting reaction. Some of the people have spent quite a bit of time in the US. Mitko himself lived there for 10 years. But I made gravy, and gravy is just not something they have in Bulgaria. It just doesn't happen.
No.
And Patrick, the guy whose ear you can see just to the left of me, mentioned it again just the day before I left the US.
I was going to say
that gravy. It was so good.
That's like a plate full of gravy with some food on it. If you can kind of zoom in under your chin there. But anyway,
he said you could eat it as soup.
Okay. Whatever. I'm going to start going through some of these slides just to pick up.
I'll talk.
Okay. That
was what she was saying.
We're at the holidays, and here we are just to make sure everyone knows they're very sensitive of making sure major religions are celebrated and acknowledged during holiday times. So here we have for Hanukkah some lights available. Christmas in Bulgarian is Koleda, and it says Koleda v Plovdiv, Christmas in Plovdiv. Very large Christmas market, food, traditional foods. They also put up a huge ice skating rink. And this is cool. They had a path that went through the city garden, and it was just a beautiful scene. And we had a lot of fun, although it was brutally cold that day we were out there. Here's a more traditional down on the ground scene of the market. And then we're getting into this, but here are some Roman ruins right in the middle of town with the Christmas market on one side and part of the ice skating rink on the other. So, and I think Sandy, you and I and Jan hung out down here in this area. So just to give you some perspective where we were talking about. There was an amusement park ride. It was a Christmas tree, and the little ornaments were balls that would open up and you could sit in them and it would take you up. The tree would kind of open up and it was delightful. Didn't do it. I don't have a child that young, but it was delightful. And I've never seen something like this at Christmas. I thought was pretty cool. Here is a traditional Bulgarian wedding band, and they make a lot of activity, especially the season's starting to change. I would expect to hear more of them. They're the ones who go to the door with the groom to the bride's house, play a lot of music. They pound on the door. They try to get the attention. Very traditional style of, we want the girl, but the father won't let the girl come. And it's a play. And they still do it. And in fact, it happened last year next door to us here. And here's the band that was involved with that. So on to some historical houses and buildings. Jan, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. This is a very old house. It looks kind of modern, honestly. It's in really good shape, but it's several hundred years old and is the residence of the Patriarch of Plovdiv. So the religious leader of the region in Bulgaria.
And his accompanying church. He has one up on the top of the hill. Beautiful view from that church, by the way. But also
a church that is itself much smaller than his home.
Yes.
So
here we are at what is now the city, one of the many city art galleries. This was a former high school for girls. And that's here in the Old Town. The Old Town of Plovdiv is an architectural reserve. They've done a really great job of trying to promote and restore what they have here because it is so precious. And I'll show you, you'll see what I mean.
This building, like a number of others, were designed by a French architect who was brought in specifically to modernize Plovdiv just before the revolution that drove out the Ottomans. The Ottomans were fairly weak toward the end anyway in that area, but he's designed quite a number of buildings, and it changed the architecture of the city.
This happens to be the former home of a wealthy Ottoman merchant. I've taken photos from the outside here. The inside is amazing as well. But around 1847, just to give you some perspective on this. And then to the side were the servants' quarters, much more plain, but here is their servants' quarters nearby. This is a common, I walk this place all the time, every day, 2 to 3 times a day. I'm walking by this street that goes to the street of crafts. And there are craftsmen that you can visit as they're doing their work, and they sell their wares for you as well. It's a pretty cool little place. This is another building, just to give you some ideas. Unfortunately, so the flags that are represented on the building, the flag on the right is Plovdiv's flag. We've got the Bulgarian flag. And then the EU flag is kind of bunched up there. But this is renovations and such. A lot of EU funds have come to help with renovations of the old town of Plovdiv.
Most of the buildings she's showing you, though, are personal and private homes right now.
Yes.
They're part of the architectural preserve, but people just live in them. They're not something special.
This is one. There are a couple. I think I've pulled out a lot of the special homes here. This is the Hindalian house. There's a very large Armenian population. There has always been in Plovdiv. The Hindalian house is another one that built in 1834, 1835. This is the Georgiadi house. Next to, you can see over on the far left, the Hisaria Gate, one of the gates into the fortress. This house is built in around 1848. It is now home to the Bulgarian National Revival Museum. And Jan and I have been through it, and it's amazing. We need better Bulgarian to go there next time. Okay. But beautiful, beautiful architecture and just beautiful colors. This happens to be the Cleanti house. This is one of my favorite homes, and you'll see why. It was constructed in 1817, and the outside doesn't do it justice because it's going to be on the inside. Very heavy wood interior, as you can see. Traditional entryway, a meeting room downstairs. But then we start going upstairs. And in this time, this is the early 1820, right in there. Ottoman influence, going back to Constantinople, Istanbul, to get the supplies, to get the ideas of what's fashionable. And this is really an amazing room. There are a couple of rooms upstairs that the ceilings are just stunning. And I'll just cycle through some of them for you.
Well, I'll mention that it is still currently true that in Bulgaria, the outside of buildings are functional, the insides are fabulous.
Yeah.
Everybody puts all their money into what happens inside their apartments or homes.
Yeah.
And these are reflective of that as well. That attitude still remains.
This is a view just looking into where traditionally a cart, a carriage with horses would come in and let people out to go into their homes with gates right there. Here are doors to a house, a door away from me. So just right up the street, very traditional and just beautiful, beautiful wood. I kind of threw this in a little tongue in cheek because this is a building from the 1920s between the two wars, and they brought French in to help renovate and redo things. The downstairs is a pizza restaurant, kind of like a Mod Pizza that I know went out of business in Ashland, but it's very much like a Mod Pizza, and we go there all the time. On to some ancient ruins. Jan, you want to talk a little bit about this?
I was waiting till I could see it. Sure, there it is. Okay. This is what's referred to as the Eastern Gate. It is the Eastern Gate of the Roman era in Plovdiv, and it was the eastern edge of the city. It's out now. It's very much so in the center of the city.
Yeah.
But
here it is now. It's transitioning. There we go.
The Eastern Gate has been reconstructed. This is not, they didn't find it standing like this. They found it all under the ground when they started doing some excavation to build something, and whoever owned the property was, I'm sure, quite disappointed when they found this. But it lines up perfectly with the gate to the fortress that Amy pointed out earlier, the arch that was next to the museum. The street goes right straight up, and literally there are no curves in that. It's just everything was perfectly straight grid lines. The Romans were very careful and very solid architects. So,
and you can see that this is just, I mean, this is the road. They did not reconstruct this road. This was not movable. They just put dirt and stuff on top of it. They reconstructed the other parts that were built up on top, or the taller pieces they put back together.
Just through use of the area, things are buried 10 to 15 feet underneath the current surface.
Yeah.
So it's just detritus has built up on top of what the Romans built. And when they dig, they find this stuff.
Yeah. Here's the gate that I mentioned. And here's Jan with the dog walking. Common sight in Bulgaria for us. Here is the ancient theater. It had been filled in with dirt and rocks and all sorts of stuff, and they just happened to come upon it in 1971 when they were building the tunnel underneath. And it's a stunning place. I'm going to slide through some photos for you. It's used for everything when the weather allows. We've been there for some concerts. I will say, these are amazingly steep steps. And because it's a 2,000-year-old theater, the marble is worn, it is slick. So just always scary to me. I found that the seats have letters. So this is the early seating arrangements with the letters. So you would go to a certain row and you would take these seats. So I thought that was kind of cool. Another couple of pictures of the theater itself. Robert Plant is playing here on June 6th. So if you're really into Robert Plant, he will be here. If you want to come, let us know.
There are performances in this theater in the summer, 3 to 6 nights a week. It is heavily used.
Yeah. Here we are on the top of Nebet Tepe. We mentioned this Neolithic times. We've had evidence of civilization and culture up here since the 6th millennia. They did a really good job of renovating it. I hate to say it that way, but they did some work to make it more accessible for folks to visit. Part of the Roman wall and a view north from there. And the big Dr. E sign is for plastic surgery. I hate that that's there, but it's there. It's a staircase from Roman times. This is original. They just uncovered this but a secret tunnel under the rocks during the 6th century, during the reign of Justinian. And they think Apostle Paul walked through this tunnel. So it's a little bit more special than I thought, Jan.
Yeah, but you can see this would be easily defensible. So it's an easy way to get in and out. But if you were trying to bring an army into the fortress, it would be hard through that tunnel to get a whole bunch of people in. So it was pretty solid. Here's
just part of the Roman wall that we've built on over time. For example, the orange building on the top is a hostel. The building in the center is a kindergarten. So these walls are just built in. Another part of Plovdiv is the Odeon. It happens that this restaurant over here on the left with the salmon colored, that's a restaurant. You can look out and see the Odeon, and there are pathways and floating walkways so you can walk through. Maker's mark on a tile from Roman times. Someone went poop, poop to, like, I was here. I thought that was kind of cool. Here we are in front of the post office, some Roman ruins directly in front of the post office. And then it's surrounded by little cafes where we, sit out and have coffee. And you'll see in the background, There's the house for the patriarch that we had mentioned previously. We're now in something called Bishop's Basilica. It has been in place for a very long time, couple thousand years. It's known for its mosaics. It's pretty stunning. Actually, someone I think here has been with us to this place. So if you want to know more and hear another perspective, talk to Sandy Felton. But it was a basilica that, again, over time, things just built up. It was used for other things and built up and built up. And then in the mid 2010s, Bulgaria decided we really need to renovate this. They lifted up mosaics. They ended up taking a whole layer off and putting it eventually onto the second floor of the building that they constructed to save the mosaics. You can see what I mean about things building upon building. We have mosaics here. Here's a level. We go down probably a yard, so 3 feet. There is evidence of probably a temple-based cult that was on site at the time as well. So they just built up over time. When you think about how many years people have been here and who all has been here, there's a lot underground, a lot. And more of the beautiful mosaics. What I found really interesting, they lifted these and put these up on the second floor. Over 20 different kinds of birds represented in the mosaics and non-native species. And this is from 300s to 400s, somewhere roughly in there. Greek was used in the churches at the time. Christianity came through. It happened that Plovdiv, Philippopolis, was the first Christian site in Bulgaria. So this is a really important location for Christianity at the time.
But it was built right on top of a Roman basilica,
Yeah.
which was used for the Roman religion. So it was exactly the same location. It just got updated.
Yeah. So if you come to Plovdiv, we will drag you to the Bishop's Basilica. It is amazing how few people go there and how just beautiful this place is. So
it is the most overlooked site in Bulgaria, I think. It is so amazing.
Then in the middle of town is a stadium, a complete Roman stadium, but it, quite like everything else someone was building, came across something, started digging, found it, and went, oh boy, this goes 90 meters the opposite direction behind me. It happens to be under the pedestrian walkway. It's pretty stunning. You'll see here's a mosque as well. This is all a mosque structure.
There are two stores that if you go into their basement, you get to see the stadium in their basement.
Here's a representation of what this actually looks like underground. It's there. So a little bit about street art. Bulgaria loves its street art. And this is in one of those pedestrian underpasses. Beautiful representation of art here. Again, something I walk by every day. It's slightly different now. They changed that up. Different advertising as well. I'm going to go through these rather quickly.
You'll have the opportunity to see these yourselves when we upload the PowerPoint. So
yes. Just to give you some ideas, it is pretty different. Some different styles of art here. This is one of my favorites. You see the ancient theater represented, the old town represented, and then in Bulgarian it says Plovdiv. So when I walk to get my haircut, I walk by this. Nobody tags them. Nobody defaces these. So it's pretty cool. Of course, a dog. I had to take that one. And then one more, I think. And there we are. It was the European Capital of Culture in 2019. A lot of money was put into Plovdiv to make it the place. And this is represented here. So it's just some common street scenes here in town. We'll cycle through these rather quickly. Right up the street from me. These are houses people live in. a couple of shops near the top of Old Town here with some things for sales. Here we are in the Kapana district, which is kind of the arts and restaurant district. I took some pictures. Downtown is very safe. In fact, tomorrow night I'm going to a concert that for a friend of ours that we've met here, and it starts at 8:30. I'm going to be walking through here, and I am not concerned. I mean, I will be personally safe, but I know that it's going to, I have personal safety here, so I feel fine doing that by myself. Some more scenes from there. Summer, a nice summer scene here in Plovdiv. And then our neighbors. But I kind of found this interesting. Here we have some Roman ruins at Christmas time. They put up reindeer and the Christmas sleigh, so in front of the mosque. So some views again north, and here's the main pedestrian walkway. This was on a mildly busy summer day, but not too busy. It can get really, really busy. I wanted to show this yarn store. They covered the entire bicycle in knitting, and I thought that was pretty cool. This happens to be our tea shop. We have become customers of them, and they love us, and they always ask about our dog, and we've made a lot of relationships happen, just being open and curious. Curious is the answer. Another walk through Old Town, and here is the mosque. Jan enjoying himself, thinking about the summer that's coming when it will be possibly too hot to do this because it gets pretty warm. Jan again, I did this to amuse him a little bit. Hey, we have John Deere here. We have the places and the things that we know in America are here. And in fact, this is one of Jan's favorites. You want to talk about this real quick, sweetie?
Yeah, this is just an odd thing. You put in 30, I think it was 50 cents,
Yeah.
and you get French fries out.
In 35 seconds.
Yeah, that's what the 35 with a quote is. That's 35 seconds. You get fresh French fries just fried for you. That seemed odd to me.
This is at this over here is the door to our underground grocery store,
I'll
supermarket.
mention it similarly on nearly every block in the areas where there's lots of traffic with people, foot traffic, I mean, and certainly within neighborhoods as well, not just in retail areas, you will see coffee vending machines. And I don't drink coffee myself. I drink the hot chocolate out of them. I find it delicious. I understand from those who drink coffee that it's really good coffee.
Yeah.
But it's like 50 cents for a cup of coffee. So there are some things that are different in Bulgaria.
And here we are at the market, which is just a half a block away from me. Those are the potatoes that I bought, and he got out his weights and measures and weighed them for me. And I just thought, that is so old school. I've got to take some photos of that. So I did. Some traditional bakeware and cookware that we use here in Bulgaria. And you know, these do not exist in America anymore for probably lawsuit reasons, but they're alive and well here in Bulgaria, wood and metal, and kids love them. So they're around. Here is something very similar to Home Depot or Lowe's. It says Home Max, one house, many ideas. And yeah, another shot inside. Here are stills so that people can make their homemade rakia, which is the traditional liquor here. And that liquor made in stills in villages is usually the best liquor of that kind. So, and then here's a photo from a different perspective, but this kind of looks like any suburb in America, you know, a restaurant, some kind of some stores. You've got some pretty new buildings going up. This is outside the center a bit, kind of to the east, and it could blend into America pretty easily. Unfortunately, I'm going to say. I found this out, Jan. I was walking with Boriana on Tuesday, This is the oldest McDonald's in Bulgaria. And on one side is the McDonald's in English, Latin letters, Latin character set. Here is McDonald's in the Cyrillic Bulgarian character set. And Jan likes us to point that out. So
signs like this are really valuable for language learning, by the way, because you can see the same word in both character sets, and it really helps with pronunciation.
Here is the group of men who always gather for chess in the park nearby, and they're having a good time there. Here are some reenactors. I found them. I thought it was kind of amusing. Right there, just that, they look kind of like they might blend in. But then they're getting near a car. So it didn't really blend, but it was pretty cool. They were in town doing some reenacting in the Old Town area. Here's how we keep Plovdiv clean. These little glutton vacuum carts, and they are around in the morning and they go through during the day. And this place is spotless. It's amazing how clean this place is.
And who hasn't wanted a ride-on vacuum?
I want to drive one. Plovdiv is known for its cats, and we're bringing 2 more here, but here's a nice photo of a cat in a window. Here's something interesting. Very traditionally in Bulgaria and in a lot of other Mediterranean countries, death notices are posted. They go up 40 days after someone's death. They usually are posted. This one happens to be 20 years ago. This gentleman who was Bulgarian, but also Armenian, put up a death notice memoriam basically to his passing from 20 years ago. They're all over town. And yeah, an obituary also. An obituary. I'm very sensitive to the time. It's at 8 o'clock right now. So let me ask, I've got about 15 slides. Shall I continue on? Okay, I've got 2. I see 2 of you on screen, so I'm going. Monuments. On top of one of the hills here in town, the hill is named Bunarjik, is a monument to Russians and their help in Bulgaria. The focus here on this is helping them primarily in the Russian help of vacating the Ottomans, but also in 1944 when they helped here in Bulgaria. This is a huge monument. I'm going to zoom in. You can see here are the Russians with the Bulgarians helping. The Bulgarians are represented with the smaller caps. The Russians have the more hard helmet caps on. And here are...
I'm going to say Bulgaria has the distinction of being one of only 3 countries that lost both World War I and World War II. The others being Germany and Austria.
And interestingly, you can find flowers that are placed up here. This is at the top of the tallest hill in town. And we've done this walk, 2 or 3 times, Jan? It's a walk. You see flowers and tributes left at the base to the Russians who've helped Bulgaria. And I find that interesting because they overstayed their welcome and were, asked to leave and kicked out in 89. So kind of interesting.
I'm going to mention that at the top of this hill, there is also, I don't think you show any of it, do you?
Yes.
Oh, you are going to, okay.
Yeah.
There's a tribute to everybody who did anything with the Russian space program.
Yeah. This is Uri Gagarin. This is a tribute, and it said that a tree, not this tree, they've grown up over time, and I think they had to be transplanted and new ones brought in, but this is representing a tree that Uri Gagarin, placed. You can also see Russian colored ribbons on this tree. So yeah. There's still very strong Russian influence here. Don't get me wrong. And there's, especially for the older folks, interest in looking back and thinking things were really good under the communist days, and the Russians have helped. It's true. They helped kick out the Ottomans. It's a complicated relationship.
You didn't mention that Gagarin was the first man in space.
I did.
They do a nice job here of showing that the Russians actually were first to do an awful lot of the things. We got to the moon first. But for the most part, the Russians did everything before the Americans.
Yeah. Here's a view of the Watchtower Hill from Bunarjica. Here is an example of Bulgaria and the EU helping with the arts. This is the House of Culture, Domna Kulturata. It's Boris Christov. He was one of the Bulgarian nationalists who fought. We've not been in here, but this is the opera house, and a lot of performances happen here as well. This is a very strange little guy. He was a Plovdiv resident who made people laugh. They decided when he passed to make a statue of him. You can see people rub his nose and his shoulders and his, legs. He's wearing little red and white martinitsa that represent March 1. They're still on him. I just saw him yesterday and they're still on his wrist. So I'm wondering when he will lose them and who's going to do that and tie them to a tree. Our apartment right here, we come in, we have a very large courtyard available it's ours as well. And so and this represents the day we arrived in March of 2025 in our home. And we wanted to celebrate by having that. So, and there's the big dog that traveled. We have reached the end and we're only 6 minutes over. So I'll let Jan speak in a minute, but really want to thank you. Thanks for being along for the ride. We hope that this was enjoyable. And we're on Facebook. The link to our group is on the Moodle as well. I know in the past, some folks who've taken some classes with us have become friends of ours, and that's lovely. We're open to that. And if you ever are in this area, Bulgaria in general, let us know. We will meet you. It's not a huge place. We can get there. And yeah, it's been a lovely time. Jan?
I just want to say thanks for showing up. I'm in Eugene and won't be back until Thursday before I'm doing anything. The videos won't go up until then. Amy's not going to take responsibility for it, and she has the computer I need. I'll send out an email to that effect as well. Really appreciate the interest. It's very, very thoughtful of people to pay attention to us. We like to think we have important things to say, but it's nice to know people pay attention too. So thank you very much.
If anybody has any other questions, go ahead and unmute or drop them in the chat. I do see one. How is waste handled there? Are there garbage trucks recycling? Boy, great question. It is done so differently here. We do not have our own garbage cans. They're kind of community garbage cans, and we have service 2 to 3 times a week for cleaning and emptying that out. We also have in some of the neighborhoods, larger like dumpsters that are covered, and people use those. There are also 3 different recycling pods, and they do a really good job of emptying those, keeping those clean. Jen, anything else about garbage and recycling?
Recycling is a big deal. They don't charge deposit on bottles, but are talking about it. I think we will have a deposit law in Bulgaria within the year or so. But we do have to sort cardboard and plastic and separately glass. But it's pretty simple, and they do clean that up all the time. It never builds up around, so they're on top of it.
And because we live right on the edge of Old Town, we have the municipal workers who are out cleaning the streets with brooms, sweeping, weeding, cleaning up garbage. We've made friends with some of those folks too, and we see them and talk with them in our very limited Bulgarian. But yeah, it's the thing about recycling here. I asked, what's the incentive? And somebody said, because it's the right thing to do. And I thought, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's not always the American incentive. So yay, I don't have to put a deposit on a trash can to have a recycling bin brought to my home, something like that.
Unfortunately, we can tell that the tourism season has begun again because there are candy wrappers and chip bags and things like that dropped on the ground.
Yeah.
And we didn't see that all winter long. Nothing was being dropped to the ground. Partly because nobody challenges you for putting something in, quote, their garbage can, because there isn't such a thing. It's just the community garbage space. So if you see a garbage can, it's open to put something in, and people do. And honestly, it's typically so clean that I don't pass something without picking it up.
Right.
It's I only have to carry it 3 or 4 feet and put it in a garbage can. So it's pretty easy to keep the place clean.
We,
Also, another thing I'll mention is you saw the cobblestone streets in the old town. They have been doing a lot of reconstruction on those as spring has been approaching. And it is amazing how well they're redoing them to look like they're brand new. I mean, it's just very interesting, the quality of the workmanship on that.
yeah, and because we aren't in cars, we meet new people all the time.
Yeah.
I was walking back from lunch. So just a quick story of how just being open to new experiences and not being in a car will lead to interesting things. Walk the dog yesterday down to the park. It's a block away where the forsythia is in bloom. I had already heard a woman, an older woman, my age, a little older, and a younger girl, 10-ish, speaking English without much accent. And that is something to note. It's not as common, right, to hear really good English. So I kind of glanced and I looked and I kind of went, oh, okay, interesting. Took the dog, went down, walked. On my way back, they come toward me. And the little girl asks me in Bulgarian, basically, I'm pretty sure, can I pet your dog? And I was tired. I had a Crater Lake National Park sweatshirt on. I normally don't wear that kind of stuff out here. It really identifies me as an American. So I'm trying to, blend a little bit. And I was like, sure. I said, my dog is a friendly dog. And she goes, oh, you speak English? Yeah. And I'm thinking, don't I look like I probably speak English?
You do.
And so I said, yes, please help yourself. She will love you. It will be a lovely thing, please. Her grandmother starts speaking to me in very good English and says, I was an Orthodox reporter for 30 years. Okay. I took that to mean she reported on the Orthodox Church for 30 years. She's Russian. Her name is Olga. Again, in my mind, I'm going to some stereotypes that I have. She had on a round fur kind of hat on. And I thought, of course, your name is Olga and you're from Russia and you look like a stereotypical Russian woman to me, a baba. And we chatted there for about 5 minutes, a very long time. And she invited me to an Orthodox service this morning at the church next door. And I said, well, I'll see if I can do that. That's very kind of you. We exchanged numbers. And I talked to Jan last night and he was like, of course you should go. You don't often have an introduction like that. So I went this morning. She was there. She grabbed my hand. She yanked me into things. She moved me around. She took care of me. And it was lovely. It was really lovely. And all because I had a dog. And I stopped to let her granddaughter pet my dog. And now I'm arranging to meet her at the DoubleTree for tea over the weekend, most likely. So you just don't know. And, here's the thing about we lived in Salem for 17 years, and then we're down in Ashland, my hometown, for about 3. And in my time in those 2 places, I never had the opportunity to just make acquaintances like that. So it was it's been a pretty amazing experience to meet new people and to have people bring us into their lives and share their lives with us. So,
Amy, I call those into me see experiences because you're offered an intimacy you would not otherwise have. And that's why I went to Romania in 75 because my father befriended a neurologist who defected.
oh,
And I was invited by the family. I took out family jewels. I took out the Bible. It took their family 12 more years to get together. But oh my gosh,
yeah,
then you have someone who can explain to you what's going on and why, because you just run through your stereotypes. They go, I
right,
know, it works this way, or this works this way, or
right.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
lovely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Both. Mhm.
All right. Anyone else? Well, I think we've come to the end. Happy spring.